Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you from one of my favorite places in Brooklyn. It is Fort Greene Park. So I can remember so many years of running up these stairs that we're looking at right by the monument. And as we're sitting here, I'm watching what is an evening ritual of everyone coming to do their yoga or doing their Muay Thai right now, or doing, who knows what, running the stairs. So I just love this park. I'm happy to be here because I also have a fellow runner. So that's also something nice about this interview. So let's get into it. She is the founder of the One Love Community Fridge Project, which is a community-based response to the long lines at food banks that began during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic in New York City. The project is a purpose-driven initiative that supports community fridges, local businesses, and farmers by addressing immediate hunger needs, minimizing food waste, and ensuring access to healthy, fresh foods. As a dynamic team player with extensive domestic and international experience, she is a hands-on leader in both corporate and entrepreneurial settings, developing and executing strategic plans, encompassing client goals, and translating them into an efficient and profitable production structure. Asmeret Berhe-Lumax, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yay!
And I'm happy that you mentioned the stairs because I actually started my day there.
Nice. Okay.
I did a 45-minute stair workout this morning.
Oh, wow.
You know there are killer stairs.
Yes.
Super happy to be here with you today.
Wonderful. So let's jump right in. So first question, where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
I was born in Asmeret, Eritrea, East Africa. I grew up in Stockholm, Sweden. Now I am based in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
What was the second question?
What is your craft?
Oh, my craft. My craft is community building with a background initially in finance and spent, 18 years in fashion, sourcing, product development, production, and then now building another community, a nonprofit organization, which is One Love Community Fridge.
Nice. And she's also being a little bit modest because we're neighbors actually, and so about a month ago, I was walking from my local precinct doing my citizen duty and voting in the primaries. And as I'm marking off the ballot, I see, oh my gosh, I know Asmeret. Oh my goodness. So as I'm leaving, I see her. And so she's recently engaging in something a little bit more community engaging as well. Tell us about that.
Well, I was running for county committee, which is basically the most basic and local position within a party, and it's extremely local. It's as local as you can get.
Yeah.
But I think it ties into the community building and responsive. So that's why you saw my name on the ballot.
Yes.
I have no previous background in politics, but I think it ties into everything that we do, again, in terms of caring for our communities.
Okay, nice. So I'll be looking out for you on the official election day ballot as well. And we're going to make sure that you get on that county committee so that we're making continuous changes.
You're going to have to move into you're going to have to become very local. Obviously you are, because we're neighbors.
Yeah.
Into our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yes. All your listeners to move to Brooklyn, New York.
Right. Let's make that happen. Okay. So let's take a step back and talk about what inspired you to, first of all, come to the U.S. So this is where I kind of ask why the where. How did you come to be living, working, and playing where you currently live? So your family is Eritrean. You grew up in Stockholm. How did you make your way here to New York?
I think I knew, I didn't know New York. I think I knew on a very early age that I would move out of Stockholm, Sweden. I grew up in a very international community. I had friends from all over. And I think I grew up in Sweden, but always, consider myself an African foremost. And I'd already decided that, I think by middle school that, I want to live somewhere else where I'm just curious about different cultures and opportunities. I came to New York for a summer initially after I graduated from high school. I just completely fell in love. I feel like it's a classic story. Completely fell in love with New York, and I thought it was just amazing culturally. and never imagined actually having a family here. But I met my partner, my husband, and that's why we're still here.
Okay.
But New York has just been proven to be the place for where I feel the most at home, and a very interesting place where I think I can be more both African, more Swedish, American, and it's been a very, very interesting journey to raising two daughters here as well.
I can imagine. So, have you lived in any other part of the city besides Brooklyn?
I have.
Okay.
I've lived, but I've only I lived in Harlem
Okay.
and then Brooklyn.
Okay.
I was actually never interested in living in Manhattan because I think because I came here with a very just curious mind and wanted to discover as much as possible.
Yeah.
In terms of just people and
Sure.
culture, and so that's been and actually even when I came back, so I lived here in New York, I lived in Harlem, moved back to Sweden, met my husband, my future husband. And he's the one who's like, no, we need to live in Brooklyn. And I was just like, what? I don't know. And now I can't even imagine living somewhere else.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. That's so funny because I met you all, I think you weren't yet, or you had just gotten married for the first time in Ghana.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was
our first trip, and that was the first time actually he went back. Since he was born in the U.S., spent his first 5 years in Ghana.
Okay.
And then came back here,
Okay.
and that was his first trip going back to Ghana.
Oh, wow.
I think it was 25 years.
Ah, okay. Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yes.
I didn't
So that
even
was a
know
big
that.
trip. Yes,
yeah,
that was a big trip.
It was a
Yeah.
big trip. And so we kicked it off with a community project. So it's
Yes.
interesting
Oh,
full circle.
yes.
Yeah, we were another of our guests, an AHN founder, Nana Ison Akiwowo. This was her first. I think that was her first AHN, a gift for the holiday. Yeah, her
Yes.
first health fair. So, wow.
That
the
was an
years.
amazing trip.
Yeah.
And that was my first time ever going to Ghana, so
Okay.
it's beautiful.
Okay. Nice.
Wow, can you believe that? That was before kids.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah. You have your
That's
oldest is
like
how old
16.
now? She's
That must have been my oldest one is 14, so we're talking about close to
Yes.
16 years ago.
yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So we know that you started the One Love Community Fridge Project during the pandemic. Aside from kind of just seeing those long lines, what was your inspiration and what motivates you to continue with that work?
I mean, at the time I was volunteering with two other organizations that work with food insecurity, addressing it in two different ways. And I think I was especially touched by one organization, the Campaign Against Hunger, and what I saw was happening in terms of the families that were coming and standing in line, and like the number of families that were showing up every week. And during that time, also a good friend of ours started one of the first community fridges in Harlem, and I just thought it was such a perfect. I thought it was just a genius thing to because it wasn't something that was being invented. It was just kind of connecting a problem to a solution
Yeah.
and using something that was already existing.
Right.
And I think the other thing, there was kind of like everything coming together. The other thing that was happening was during that time, the quarantine was happening. There was a lot of anxiety, and I really wanted to do something where our children could be engaged and participate and feel empowered to actually address what was going on. So we have set up a fridge here in Clinton Hill, and we'll go buy food and take it to the fridge, and then we have friends and families that are reaching out to say, how can we support, and neighbors. And I thought the amazing thing is we saw all these fridges being set up throughout New York, and I thought it was amazing. I thought it was amazing to see all these fridges, but I think what pivoted a little bit in our thinking was, okay, we don't have to set up too many fridges. What we should do instead is let's focus on supporting any mutual aid groups or neighbors or people or that's setting up the fridges to make sure that they are long-term, that they're sustained and they're here to stay. And we also decided early on to focus on not just food, but fresh and healthy food, because I saw that was one of the challenges with many emergency relief organizations, that they were providing, dry goods, canned foods. It wasn't fresh. It wasn't focused on health. It was more focused on just getting food out. And then the other thing that was important for me was like, because it's something I've thought about previously, was that a lot of volunteer work I would do, I felt like it was very segmented around either age or culture or specific, just one topic. And I really wanted to figure out how can we create multicultural, multi-generational space that also, even though you're addressing something that's about injustice and equality, also brings joy and it's just a sense of pride. So that's kind of what's been the motivation around like One Love community and the work that we're doing.
Nice. So I'm curious. So you mentioned that you didn't necessarily install the fridges. They were often just there. And so how did you go about the logistics of planning and determining how you were going to continue to stock them and just kind of building the organization as a service organization during that time?
So it's been like super organic because it's like as we're growing, obviously the number one kind of determinant has been geography or like location, because we started in our own neighborhood. That's where we set up the fridge. We set up another fridge as well. And then it's been about, okay, as we get more people activated and depending where they are, that will kind of determine. And then the other thing determines it is who our partner is and where we're getting food donations. And that's how we've kind of been growing the network. So, I mean, at this point, we're supporting another 22 fridges across, mainly in Brooklyn and Lower Manhattan. And as we keep growing, because we're now at 100 plus volunteers, we're just going to keep expanding like geographically. But the other thing that we also focused on was in terms of consistency. So now, for example, we have food donations 7 days a week. It's over 70 pickups per week. So that's like 10 a day. And this idea of like trying to do it consistently throughout the whole day, so you can give access to as many people as possible. Because, in the mornings you might see families with children. Late in the evening, it's community members that are unsheltered. So it really varies who uses the fridges.
Sure. So, and can anyone just walk up, open the fridge, and take something out, or are they moderated at all?
No, anyone. That's I think for me this is the genius part of it.
Yeah.
Is that it's literally accessible to anyone, and most of these fridges are available 24/7. And I think the only thing that kind of stops us is demand is higher than the supply, so we need even more people to get involved and help stock the fridges.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the idea is to make it feel like it's your fridge at home, and you basically take what you need, and then you leave what you don't need, and also welcomes people to also leave what they can as well and share.
Sure.
And nothing is too small, nothing is too big. Yeah.
Wow. So if I have excess food, things that, I may not get to, I can basically stroll up to a fridge, put it in, and that's it.
Absolutely.
Isn't that a beautiful idea?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Because, this encourages this idea that we all have a responsibility to our communities, but we are all in different places of life. So there's different ways that can work for me. There's different ways that works for you. But I feel like this allows many people to participate and contribute or engage or get support, rather than just really segmented to only a small specific group.
You mentioned volunteer organizations and, all of this, obviously it sounds like a really strong volunteer effort, but it's always a question of how do you sustain it? How do you find funding? How are you systemizing the organization so that it can stay and be sustainable?
Yes, great question, because it's evolving. I mean, if we had this conversation a year ago, it would have looked very different. We're constantly evolving, because what we're trying to do is let's figure out where are we most supportive and where is the need, so that we will always be a grassroots organization. Our goal is to create toolkits that could easily be adaptable in different cities. So our next step now, for example, is in LA. And even though our value and our mission is the same, the way we go about it in LA might be a little bit different, because it's different how you move around, people get access, how, all of that looks very different. And the goal is to keep doing that with different cities. The other part is we are now a 501c3, which initially that was not initially part of the plan, because initially I was trying to do something with my family.
Yeah.
And the next step now will be to raise funding to be able to have at least a core team, but the volunteer aspect is also still important because it's important from an engagement aspect and connecting aspect, because we're basically using food as the connector. It's because it's a true connector. It allows people to connect across cultures, ages, religions. There's so many ways that food helps us connect.
Yep.
And one of the base tools that we're using is the community fridges. But we're also working to we partner with schools to speak at schools and have families how to engage them. We've also moved from just accepting donations to partner with farms as well, that we actually get donations from farm, but our goal in the future will be to actually purchase produce from farms, because we want to support small farmers and urban farmers. So that's what we're working on as well. But I think the most amazing thing is that we're able to do this in a way that is not about One Love and the One Love team to have control. It's really just about activating, engaging people, because the goal is for people to have all these hyper-local kind of communities that sustains themselves. So that's the goal.
Yeah. So in terms of, so this is great because you are a startup, not-for-profit, and you have experience working in the development, production all over the world. So how did that experience help in the formation of your organization?
Absolutely. I mean, I do feel like One Love is kind of it's an intersection for me, like my personal interest and passions and drive, along with my professional experiences. So one of the most, I think, important thing has been like logistics.
Yes. Exactly.
Organize, like the logistic part, because we also realize that's also one of the challenges why so much food in this country is being wasted has to do with logistics, and also obviously laws that doesn't regulate, that allows people, right? So logistics is a big part of it, and organizing and building the infrastructure around it.
Right.
And there's a couple of things important for us: flexibility and adaptability. Thank you. It's that time of the day. But also like being able to stay grassroots and be connected. So those are like a couple of things that are important that we have to take account when we set up the infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean that's a super exciting. You mentioned the transition or the addition of this to your professional work. So if you were to now look at what your professional work is like, what percentage of it is this passion project, and then what percentage of it is the other work, which I want to get into, is like who are you in your other day job?
Well, let me tell you this. Initially, this was kind of an hour or 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's definitely more than a full-time job right now because of the scale of the work that we're doing and the intensity of it, and also because it's a nonprofit, but it's a startup. The way I position where we see ourselves is at this crossroad where between like a public and private kind of sector, and profit and non-profit, we can sit in between. And I think because of work experiences, professional experiences, and we've been like this idea of bridging the two worlds in a way that's beneficial for all parties. Figuring that out, but that's kind of where I see us sit. My day job is in fashion, but I honestly feel I'm definitely transitioning more into to building this. But I have another startup that we started at the same time, which is the Black Beauty Club, which might seem like it's a whole separate project, but it's very, very much the same, because it's about access, it's about empowerment, it's about engagement. It's just with the Black Beauty Club, we look at beauty from like a cultural lens, and working with beauty founders, in terms of on the back end as well, and consumer, and this idea of creating the community around that, and what does that mean, and networking is a big part of it. And it's kind of the same, it's just the one love, it's food,
Right.
being, the center of it. But kind of the goals and what drives us, me, is the same.
Sure. So tell us a little bit more. So the genesis of another startup, so the Black Beauty Club. What is it? So you kind of touched on it. What is it that you all do, produce? Is it media? Is it entertainment? It's fashion? Tell us more.
It's funny enough, they're both kind of byproducts of turning into main products.
Okay.
Because the beauty club came about. So my co-founder told me she was working on a project. I was working on a project within the beauty space, and we started having all these conversations. And then we one of the biggest one was like, what are the real challenges? Because especially within Black beauty, the initial thing that comes to people's mind is always very surface level.
Yes.
It's also visual.
Yes.
Not models not being used and so on. But we're like, no. The true power is like, okay, how do we address ownership, and what are the issues a lot of founders encounter in terms of financing, distribution, all of that. And this was in the wake of George Floyd and BLM, and there was a lot of media attention towards it, but we felt that it was very superficial.
Sure. Right.
So that's kind of how it came about. So and then we end up moving these conversations to Clubhouse at a time when everybody's home, and we built a huge community there. And we realized that the conversation we were having, and also making the conversations very solution oriented, was not something that we were not alone in wanting to have this. It's a huge community. And I think that's kind of where it started. And now what we do today is we move those conversations outside to the real world. So we're based, I don't know, how do I describe us? Because again, I feel like everything I'm doing right now is very non-traditional.
Yeah.
It's, we drive conversations, and we drive solution-oriented conversations around beauty. So we have monthly events. The goal of that is, also to get people to network, to, I guess, create access, to just create a space where people feel comfortable and safe, actually.
Sure.
And then we also work with different parts of the industry, like brands and so on, and address whatever challenges they have.
Sure. So would you say that you kind of straddle the DEI space, a marketing promotion space, in terms of kind of being driving solutions in terms of like shining a light on the challenge, and then challenging the sector to actually respond in a lot of ways?
I think so. And it's also about, again, creating access in different ways. When I say access, I mean just like opening up the space, and it's not just specific like beauty products.
Sure.
But it's the beauty space,
Yes.
which is also intersects with so many other spaces. So, we can talk about politics of hair, we can talk about importance of sleep, we can talk about and figure out what it is. So, there's different players within each of that. And also giving, I think, many people in the community maybe access to specific thought leaders within that space. The other thing was, I think, showing also the multifaceted aspect of Black beauty has been very, very important for us. That this idea of Black beauty has been very singular for, especially here in America, and wanting to show that it's not. So that's another important thing for us within the Black Beauty Club, and that kind of informs how we organize conversations or events.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, cool. So let me move into my Glocal speak question. So we want to hear what you hear. So I ask you to share a word, a phrase, or saying that is a meaningful part of your local experience, and why you've come to value it as a Glocal speak.
Glocal. I just read something the other day, which it was actually on the ground.
Oh, okay.
On my block.
Uh-huh.
It says words are sometimes inadequate, and it's like really sticks with me. And I don't know if it's like specifically tied to that, but I truly believe in action and taking action, and I truly believe in this idea of, I mean, it ties into Glocal because the idea of how small actions, many small actions can lead to big changes. And I truly believe in in doing things on a very local level that then will show up on a global scale.
Right.
And especially when we live in a very global communities. You know, if you look at even within our space, we have friends from all over that are coming from different places or travel to different places, different culture. So this idea, there's a global mindset, but the change and everything that we need to fix can also happen, needs to happen actually on a very local.
Right.
We can start right here in the front. People say in the backyard, but I kind of say in the front yard.
Right.
So that kind of really stuck with me. It's funny because I've lived on that block for 5 years, and I just saw it the other day, and I was like,
So it's probably new.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I hope
But I
so.
like that. Words sometimes are not enough. That's what it
Yes,
was?
inadequate.
Inadequate.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, and sometimes they are inadequate. So yeah, let's act. It's a clear indication of actions speak louder than words. Let's talk a little bit more about where you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years. So when you look at the two new endeavors that you're in and what you're doing as a mom, as a partner, where do you see yourself in the next, let's say 5 years?
Oh, I have no idea actually. I mean that's for me. My path has never been linear. I think what's important for me is I have an open mind and I'm curious and I'm very motivated by this idea of continuous development. So I think in 5 years, I would love to see this project or One Love in several different cities. I think that's like number one. And then what we do in the Black Beauty Club, because again, I mentioned that initially was a byproduct, but is one of those things that you'd realize how much of a need and demand there is that I know right now that it's something that I'm going to spend time on and further evolving it. So in 5 years, no. I don't know.
So let me put a seed in your thoughts. So when I think about it, I would love to see hunger not an issue. And so I don't want to say I want to put you out of business, but I would love to see it not an issue.
Yeah, I would love to say that, but also there's I mean, believe me, I'm like the most optimistic person in the world. But one, there's a reality that I don't think we're going to solve that. Not because because it has to do with finances. So that's the main reason. And not because there's not enough food for us, because there's actually enough food for all of us. And then I would love to see what's happening with the community fridges. It's very, very important because it's not about the fridges themselves. It's more about the mindset that people opening up to this idea of, and then also even looking at non-profit organization in a whole different way. This idea of circle movement, and I think that's the most fundamental important thing with the fridges. So yes, it's
Bringing it
amazing.
local,
but it's an amazing tool. But the idea that people are opening up their minds to that something exists freely on the street, and you take something that's enough for yourself and you share with your neighbors. And I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we will.
Yes.
Does that?
Yeah, definitely. So on the community fridge side, the One Love, we want to see more One Love and more engagement amongst communities. It could even be that it's beyond just the fridge, that there's gatherings, there's just more knowledge that's shared around food and things like that.
Absolutely, because that's how I see it. The fridge is one thing, but once you open up your mindset to that, it kind of changes on how you look at life in general.
Right. Okay, so then in terms of Black beauty, so I'm curious about, in the context of that question, so thinking about Clubhouse and how that was a huge catalyst for you. First, I want to know, is it still? And then in the future, looking at the next 5 years, do you think it will continue to be?
For us, it was a huge catalyst for us. And yes, I think it was also a perfect time because I loved talking about beauty, even though we talked about it from a cultural lens in a space that wasn't visual during a time when a lot of the conversation about Black beauty was just very about media and model. It was very about visuals. So I'm super grateful to Clubhouse at the time because, and I think it allowed or gave permission to a lot of people that might not have felt comfortable to participate in the conversation to be a part of it and share and be vulnerable and come with ideas. So it was the perfect place to start it.
Sure.
But we also came to a point where like people want to meet.
Yeah.
People want to see each other. People want to connect. So for us now, the strongest point is really in real like meeting and really get people to connect as well. But we want to keep in mind there are people that can't be where we are.
Right.
And there are people that, it doesn't work for them to meet in real life and figure out how would that look in order for them to participate. But I love what's happening within Black beauty right now.
Right. So in terms of brands that you really love to talk about that are doing great things and great stories in that space, can you share some of the ones that you...
Black beauty?
Uh-huh.
Okay, there's so many that I really like right now. Amicale is one. I'm wearing the lip gloss with 54th Throne. We have Rose in skincare where I'm like obsessed with one of the sprays. Let's see what else. I mean, there's actually, that's why I feel like I'm super excited to see what's happening because in my mind, I see something that's happening that happened within fashion a few years ago in terms of barriers of entry, lowering, just allowing for entry that wasn't possible before. Sure. And I think also shining a light on some of the challenges, which is like distribution is a huge one. I figure out, but it's still like we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But I do get excited when we have conversations with two ends, with some of the young founders. And then also I think when I speak to a younger generation in terms of how they look up, like things that they think is important, how they look up on themselves. And it's exciting. Okay. They have access to so much more information. And I think, I don't know, it's just exciting. They think they're so much more informed and they just look at the world completely different from where I looked at it when I was at that age.
Yeah. It's almost like they have this, like when you went to the movies and you had the 3D glasses, it's like they have some different kind of lens.
Yes. And I think the other step that, I feel like I've talked a lot about in terms of a lot of values and mindsets, but there's also reality in terms of you can look at financial support. I think at one point there was a lot of financial support that was happening or being driven towards Black-owned brands, but we would like to make sure that continues and doesn't...
It wasn't just a blip.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, that's what we're going to indulge in and look out for the Black Beauty Club, making sure to toe the line and making sure that we don't fall off the radar for funding.
Exactly. Thank you.
Nice. So I like what you said about mindset. And so I have my mindset hack question. What is your favorite or an innovative mindset hack? So this is one that you practice, one that you know of, or one that you can imagine.
Running is absolutely my favorite one. That's my meditation. That's my therapy. That's my, when I run, I have the best ideas. I plan my day. The physical activity makes me feel good mentally as well.
Right.
That's my mindset. And I think listening to people. I love hearing other people. I think for me that's because it helps me expand my thinking.
Sure. Yeah. Let me ask on running. So I know a lot of your running story, but I want you to share with the audience. How did you get into running and where has your journey taken you on the running circuit?
It's been amazing. It's interesting because it's such an individual sport, but at the same time it's extremely collective. And I didn't start running until after I had children, but I never forget a friend of ours ran the New York Marathon and I saw her and I was like, I can do that too. Thinking I could just like show up.
Right.
But it's been, that was a journey, but it's been amazing because I've been part of running groups in New York, running yourself. We had like a mom running group. We've had actually some of my like friends that are like closest friends right now. We become friends through running,
Right.
which I think it's amazing. And then for myself, I like the fact that it's a long-term sport. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to be cliche, but you know, life is a marathon. And I guess you being able to see improvement. Yeah, for me also can go back to like things that I think is important in my life is access. I feel like it's a sport that's accessible to many people.
Right.
And that's literally actually one of the reasons why I started when I was like I can't do the schedules.
Yeah.
I had like a toddler and a baby. I was like, I need to find something that I can do at a time that works for me and that wasn't complicated and doesn't require me to buy a million gear and all that. So that's how that's what I feel like running in some way is a very democratic sport.
Yes. Yeah. I would say so too. And so, except when you think about it, I wanted to ask you, what do you run in? What is your running shoe of choice? Because I'm always searching for new ones. Like I'm an Asics now. I was an Ultras before this. So I'm always, because my body is constantly changing, my shoe is changing. So what are you running in
That's
now?
so interesting. I mean, I run in the Nike Pegasus right now. They work with me.
It's
At
cool.
one point, initially, I was running the Asics. They work really well for me. Then my husband started working at Nike. So only Nike wasn't involved, allowed. But that worked really well. But what worked for me was the Flyknits. I used to run a lot in the Flyknits, which is super light. I like light shoes.
Yeah.
And then, the Pegasus. I've been running the Pegasus for a few years now. And they work well for me. And I think probably because I'm getting older, I need a little bit more support.
Yeah.
But knock on wood, I actually haven't had any injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm running to be able to
Run forever.
and stay healthy.
Yeah.
You know, that's what drives me. It's really like to be able to keep running when I'm like 80. So that's good. But yeah, that's my shoe for now.
Yeah. So my Pegasus story started probably when they first came out with the Pegasus, and that was our trainer in college. So yeah, that's when I first, and so it's obviously evolved.
Did you run competitively?
Well, yeah, I ran track in college.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my Pegasus story. I don't no shade to Nike, but they're not my shoe anymore.
No, I think it depends. I think it depends on what your body and how your running style is, and you know, because I think I got stuck with Nike then.
And it works. So don't, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
But I definitely feel like I had friends that doesn't work for them.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So I always look out for you when I'm out running. So that's one thing that we have in common. Okay. So we're getting to, I feel like I do know you and who you are when you're not being the volunteer or the consultant. But I like to ask this question of everyone are you a reader, a watcher, or a listener in your spare time? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens?
Okay, I love reading. Actually, reading was probably the thing that recharged me the most before. I'm sad to say I don't read as much anymore. But I also think it's because I'm physically always moving.
Yeah.
So I would love to find more time. I think where I read now is more articles. Well, but I would love to get back to the book. So, like the newspaper every day.
Okay.
I'm an avid.
So which the time?
New York Times.
Okay.
But I also love the New Yorker and the New Yorker and Atlantic.
Yeah.
So that's more like my weekend reads.
Yeah.
But like every day, I start the day with New York Times and I end the day with New York Times.
Okay.
I'm not sure they do deserve my loyalty anymore. I feel like, sorry, New York Times. And then watching, I don't watch a lot of TV or movies, but when I do watch, I binge watch.
Okay.
So when I watch TV, I will watch a whole season. I will literally watch like 8 hours straight.
Yeah.
But then I can go probably like months,
Yeah.
like 2-3 months without watching anything.
Yeah.
So I like to do like a show Only one.
Yes. Yes.
So that's me.
Yeah,
And
it's like a remember the mini series back in
Yeah.
the day, or no, maybe so it would be 3 days of something, and so it's kind of like
Yes,
that.
yes, exactly. And then movies now, I think, is mostly because of my children. I enjoy watching movies with them.
Okay.
So when they have movies they want to watch, we watch together.
Yeah.
And that actually used to be my guilty pleasure. What I used to do as well, because I did a lot of consulting. One of my treats would be to go to the movies by myself in the middle of the day.
Oh wow.
Before kids.
Right.
That was before kids.
Yeah.
But I enjoy that they now are in a phase where we can watch like kind of the same movies.
enjoy them.
So when
Yeah.
they want to watch, we watch together.
Okay. Nice. All right. So, Asmeret, this has been so fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I love
Yes,
speaking with you.
exactly. So, before we sign off for today, do you have any final thoughts to share with our listeners?
Well, first of all, I need you all to move to Brooklyn because I need to come and vote for me. I would say my final thoughts is what kind of drives me has always been like things that I'm passionate about. And I think in everything you're passionate about, we all have different things. There's always things that you can do to kind of share with other people in your community and create positive change. So, and I want, again, because we live in this world that is so focused on the billions and the multi-millions and try to reach as many people at the same time all the time, I want to shine a light on the fact that small actions really matter and can have a direct impact that you have no idea of. And I think that's important to remember and not always just chasing the $1 billion project. So that's my final words.
Yeah. Small actions, folks. That's from the founder of the One Love Community Fridge Project. I love that. Like, it is about one love. Thank you for that. All right, listeners, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us each and every Tuesday with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, folks, actions. So that means share, like, subscribe. Leave us a review. It helps people find great content and learn about the wonderful things that people are doing in the world. All of my Glocal citizens are dynamic diasporans that are doing things that are great. Check out the show notes because you can see all kinds of notes on what it is that my guests are doing. And from Fort Greene Park here in Brooklyn, bye for now.